Johnny Blaze wants to know if is contour drawing a form of seeing with your eyes drawing, and also is it similar to sight size without the use of instruments other than the use of your eye? That's an interesting question, Johnny. There's a lot of mixed stuff here, and one of the things you're really trying to sort out, and this is for many of you, sort of at the beginning phase of this study, and that is what in the world is drawing? What's this? What's that? And seeing with your eyes, drawing with your eyes rather than drawing with instruments beforehand is in a different class. You could do either one without doing contour drawing. Okay. So, so the question about whether contour drawing is similar to sight size. Sight size is another thing unto itself. Sight size just means that you're drawing. I'm working on that whistle. What am I supposed to do? Maybe it's the coffee that's causing that. If anybody knows how to get me my whatever it is in certain words to stop whistling, maybe one of you musicians out there knows something about solo singing and shrill whistling coming out of the tongue and lip. Anyway, okay, enough of that. So, but also, is it similar to sight size without the use of instruments? So, sight size is just a place on the floor. When you're drawing, it just means you're drawing it so that it appears to be about the same size as whatever you're drawing. That's what sight size is, unless you're following a method. And then the method is, you can do something in sight size theoretically without using measuring tools. But a huge piece of what goes on today does take a different approach, and it has nothing to do with contour drawing per se. Doesn't mean you aren't going to be doing, when you're doing the sight size method you see around today, you aren't going to be getting to the contour. But the contour, Johnny, and to everybody, the contour is just the word we use for the outline of objects. Okay, and so if you are drawing to get to the outline of objects, you could even be using construction drawing, which I highly reject, just because it dumbs you down. Actually, I hate to say it that way, but it's like the worst. It presumes that you're stupid. I think a lot of new methods presume that you're stupid. Preliminary measuring presumes that you can't see, and I would say presumes that you're too stupid to draw something and then correct it. Just draw the way it looks and correct it. I'm saying that, and I don't mean to be rude to anybody, but some days it just feels like you got to say it the way it is. But is contour drawing a form of seeing with your eyes drawing? And so you can get any which way that way. Seeing with your eyes, though, is you draw with your eyes. You draw what you see, make it as like as you can, and adjust it with your eyes. But your eyes are always measuring, making comparisons, watching this to that. You might be picking up, a curve might be picking up something down here. One of the things that I call drawing with your eyes is when Da Vinci says, you notice that when this curve comes around and it gets cut off by another shape, that where that would head, where that would actually wind up, that cut off curve, if it continued, is a thing that you should be aware of, and that you don't have to use instruments for. Frequently you can't, but you can actually observe whether or not the line that gets cut off would continue to the same place. That's just one of the many kinds of measuring with your eye that people do. But I'm just going to talk about contour drawing, Johnny, and see if you can get anything out of this that might be useful to you, and of course to all our friends. I was thinking it was my computer that was slow, but I think there's something about the program I'm using that is slowish. Anyway, my laser's up. And so I'm looking at two guys. One guy, everybody knows Holbein. I shouldn't say that everybody knows. Everybody knows Da Vinci. But Holbein's drawings are quite famous for being virtually nothing but contours. They look like tracings. And I will talk about tracing. Well, maybe I'll talk about it now. One of the things you can do is, to understand what a contour is, you can just put a piece of glass up and trace a shape along this piece of glass. that of something you see. You know, it could be the contour of someone's face. If you set it in high contrast, it'll be very easy for you to do. And then you can look at that line and you think, what a genius you are. But that is what contour drawing in its most simplistic kind of a rendition is. It's just a traced contour around whatever shape you're looking at. The more silhouetted the shape is, the easier it is to draw. When you get to the Boston School, what we draw is silhouetted shapes, and not all. We don't. The worry is not anywhere near as heavy on you in those what we call lost areas. So you can see all through the Holbein, though, that there's an attempt on his part to draw around certain pieces of the clothing or parts of the face. You see the nose. It just looks like he's trying to draw the entire contour of a nose. Now that to me is like the most straightforward statement of what contour-based drawing looks like, where everything is the contour. But Da Vinci is the guy who talks about this more. Everybody's doing that before was doing something like contour. I mean, that's the one that goes way, way back. Although it's curious how I want to tell you, the Greeks, was it early Rome or the Greeks did something interesting that isn't quite as simple as what we do later. But contour drawing is just the drawing of the outline of the object, okay? And but how do you have to do it? One of the things that Degas said was that drawing is what happens between the contours, right? Now, everybody back in this day was presuming when you meant drawing of something. Because in imaginative work, you were drawing a thing and putting it in a picture with another thing that you had drawn, and the whole thing was a composite that was intended to look like a piece of real life to tell a story or whatever. So, but in every case, though, you can see as you look down here that he's actually trying to draw a very precise contour of the figure, okay? So what's contour drawing, right? It's drawing of the contour, or you could say, some people will say, well, just throw some lines. We'll talk about some of that. But Ang, if you look at Ang's, there's significant parts of his that remind me an awful lot of Holbein, where it looks like he's just looking blankly at the thing and tracing, memorizing it probably. And as it were tracing on glass, it looks like that. And I don't mean to say he wasn't at all. That would be a silly thing to say about his work. But what he's doing is he's just methodically articulating the exact look of a line as it goes around whatever. And so that is contour. And remember that Degas was the student of Lamotte, who was a very good top student of Ang's. So the connection is continuous, but that's object drawing 101, draw the outline, that's the objective, continues and continues. Here's Sargent, and you look at Sargent and you may think he's something else, but every line he makes here, you can see him trying to draw the actual contour. Now you'll see that his efforts aren't as continuous as you talk about with Holbein. In fact, is this other guy here? Look at this fetching. I mean, this is like closed line 101. How do you get a perfect contour all the way around? Look at the ear, contour, 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 contour. Petchin is a Russian painter, expatriate, became an American. Came to America. I think he became an American. Shouldn't watch out what I say here. But Sargent's got this awareness that he can float lines, and you probably see gaps in there. I'm looking for one for you to look at. Yeah, you can take a look at the hands. You can see that even though he's jumping and grabbing onto spots, that's still the contour that he's trying to draw. The contour being the outline of the object. And you'll see that in every area. So when he starts working on the hand, he's not doing anything, mass-oriented or anything blob-oriented or spot-oriented. He's actually drawing contours. I'll show you how the Boston School does it just on the next image. But this is a Slade School guy, Augustus John. And you can see him doing exactly what all these other good guys do. You see that every effort he's making is simply to articulate the outline. I shouldn't say every effort, but that's the dominant thing that he's doing. It's articulating the outline. And this is where I should add it, or a silhouetting edge, the sharp reading edge, for example, of a fold, the part that reads best, where you can actually make what you could say that is a line. But in a sense, you could say that he's articulating the shape of the fold, so the fold becomes the object that he's articulating. But that look is very much the same look as you'll see with everybody throughout the history of Western art, to speak of. I mean, everybody uses contour. Contour is what the silhouette. Degas says silhouette is everything. The contour is what should we say, the mother lode. No matter what the silhouette is, we're talking contour All right. I'm probably saying more than I should on that point. But so here's a Boston School guy. This is Benson. I've shown you this any number of times before, but you can see here where he's got contour going on. And this is now, here's a place where you'd say he looks like he's doing a simplistic contour just like everybody else. But on the other hand, there's contour here, and yet some parts of the hair, he's actually memorized a contour. He just hasn't tried to make it continuous where it isn't continuous. He actually stops the contour, lets it go lost, and picks it up again. And so but it's still all contour, okay? It's still all contour. It's lost and found in its orientation, but it's still all contour. You can see similar stuff here. Even in a fold here, this is still technically, you'd call this a contour, but it's not the contour of an object. Now it becomes the contour of a shadow shape. I prefer not to use that terminology there, but you can see that going around the figure, we're talking about the outline of anything, the hair mass or the face or anything. We're talking about the pursuit, and all these guys is the pursuit of the contour of the object. Or whatever, by the way, if you're talking about hair units, that could be perceived to be, this is a reading point, it is the right side of an object that we think of abstractly. Here's the left side of it. There's the right side. Even if it's just hair, it still makes a shape. And those kinds of things are still enormously useful, the contour we're talking about now. You see Fetchin, I mean, he's a guy who just does line and he just noodles it up and then he insists he drives it again into the line. And it's pretty effective. Don't confuse that kind of contour drawing with sketches. And the sketching that you see in the Millet here and the Rembrandt here and are both ideas for pictures. They're just roughing out of a figure, a gesture, or whatever, sort of suggesting a landscape, or in this case, some buildings where this storyline will feature. Someone filling up bags, it looks like, and so perhaps with grain or whatever. In this case, a couple people walking a child. But you can see this isn't contour drawing in anything except the most generalized kind of a sense. In other words, we also still use contour, the idea of contour, but it's not like we're looking at the figure, we're just making one up. But significantly, most of this is still based on contour. Some people will do it just with scribbles and blobs. I've never found that to be particularly effective. I mean, you could talk about Raphael's. He seemed to have found it effective a number of times. He will draw instead of a head, sort of trying to be a shape. He'll just make an egg and then make the body to be an egg, and the arm will be several tubular little egg things. You've seen that sort of format. That's anything but contour drawing when you do that. But those are primarily to figure out a gesture. So you throw out some lines and you just start using them to see if you can, to use whatever you can find to use to make a gesture for yourself, to see if you can get a figure together from which you'll then maybe bring a model in or whatever else you'll do. You improve on your imaginative figure. Millet, of course, famously said he didn't work from figures, he worked from memory. Now, what I wanted to do is show you this contour drawing. This is called blind contour, and I think some of what you're talking about when you say contour, the way you did just there, Johnny, made me think that you were talking about blind contour. And besides tracing on glass, where you can really, if you trace carefully, hold your head in one really careful position, look with one eye, and just trace around one edge of a leaf like this, you'll actually begin to see how much data there is in that leaf. A lot of times you go around your drawing and your drawing as crudely as this when there's something very specific in front of you that you could draw better. And so I think that one of the good uses of either glass or even contour drawing is blind contour, is that you actually, like in blind contour, you set your eye on the side of this leaf. You just put your eye on it. Don't look at your put your eye on it. Don't look at your paper and just move your pencil along while your eye is slowly tracing it. I don't think it's a great thing to do. I don't know that it has many advantages. But the one thing you will see on your paper is you'll see something that looks like, I've never drawn a leaf that had that much content in it before. So you can see how much content there is in a contour by studying contour, either by tracing on glass or by doing a blind contour. Now, blind contour never really gets together. It's like the blind leading the blind, except that for a little few seconds, just the sheer bump count along the edge of a leaf is going to be all there for you to see, and you're going to realize how much there is to the contour. Just one of those things. I don't know of any other value. I honestly don't. Maybe somebody else does. And the only reason I'm showing you these is because these are mine, and these are from memory studies. And I'm just showing you that the memory studies I've done they start with pure contour. All I'm trying to memorize is the contour and some values within the contour that you eventually will see. I'm sorry these can't be stronger than this. Um, but these other three here look like mass, right? And this one really was done from blobs, but there's no such thing. Every place you look at, there's a contour, right? There's a whole lot of lost areas, and then there's a contour, a whole bunch of lost areas. And so you can see that what we're doing is still the same. It's just that there's less contour, less absolute, less total outline of the object, and more just silhouettes where they happen. They're still called contours. And then these are two memories from I think I may have shown you the one where I have the cellist, and this is a scene also from the same night at the night at the opera. And I don't remember what instrument this woman was playing. I think it might have just been the same woman who's playing the piano that night. But you can see that I'm in that case down there. It looks like I probably did line first. I'd memorized the line into the mass, but this one has a look of more mass. I may have done it somewhat the other way, but you still need the line. The line is the only thing that's fixing you in space. The blob is not very meaningful, so you just still need the contour, some elements of it. But in the lost and found world, the visual impression world, this is the look you'll wind up with, just like I showed you with the one by Benson. So yeah, and I had fun doing this because there were places where you couldn't see anything at all, and so I was actually trying to just to go home with a memory of the points I could remember that would make this. And this was the director, of course, bowing to the crowd, which I found curiously memorable. And in a few lines, it gripped me with just the few lines it had, made it somewhat more easy to memorize too. So I think that may be all we need, Johnny. Think this whole thing through. Contour is the outline of objects. Contour drawing, it can be done many ways, but the contour is everywhere. And even if you're a master draftsman, you have to get to the contour. The contour is huge and important. So yeah, I'd recommend memory drawing, always memory drawing. When you're trying to do a contour, let me say this other thing about Sargent. He's the guy that talked about draw as long a line as you can remember. So, he might have been able to remember. Let's see if I can find a segment for you. Yeah, so it looks like he might have been able to remember. Let's look down here. Maybe this bump, the secondary bump, and then the way it sort of was ending down here. That's probably about the length of a line he could remember. That's about the length I can remember. 2 or 3 bumps on a line, getting the angle and the general sweep of the line, the general arc of the line is doing a lot. But when you're working our way, you're doing a contour, but you're not doing a continuous contour blindly. And you're not doing a continuous contour at all until later on you can close it in as a continuous contour. But virtually everybody who even does contour drawing is doing it by the piece. So Sargent would talk about remembering as much of a line drawing as long a line as you can remember. Up here you can actually see that he's drawing an enormously long one. And I don't know if that's a first try. It looks like it might very well be a first shot, right up under the hair. And that's pretty impressive if that's such as it is. I mean, and then of course that's easy to correct that as you need to in the next, if you draw it lightly enough in the next iteration, where you can, if you want to continue in that, just talking about contour, you might say, well, if this was in the right place, but this thing here needed to be higher, then you could say this goes over, and you could actually cut in here and draw yourself a new contour down here, picking it up where it goes down here, and then letting it go, and it'll still look like contour. And you can probably see that in a couple of places. Usually you can on anyone's drawing. But yeah, it looks like the same idea, though, persists, like when you're talking about the shoulder over here on the Augustus John. It looks like the same idea persists, that you want as long a line as you can get, and it looks like these guys are remembering it. The difference between this and the blind contour is you look up. You memorize a line. You look at a line, you run your eye along it, you hold it in your mind, you go over here to the drawing, and you put it all down. By the way, this kind of drawing isn't done. It's more like, as I've said before, the 5th floor of the Degas studio, trying to memorize as much as you can and take it away with you for bunches of good reasons. The continuity of the unity of it is better if you do that. But what you don't do is you don't sit with your drawing in front of you and look back and forth trying to transfer stuff. You can't get a beautiful long line doing that, right? And you wouldn't want it close to your eye anyway. I see a lot of people doing that, having the whole drawing way too close to themselves. You can't even. You need the drawing to be farther away from you just to draw a long line, just to see the entire line. So some of those things, some of those behaviors are prospectively problematical. If you keep doing that, persistently doing that thing, you won't be having to memorize a line. You'll just be pecking at lines. And the world is different. And I recommend highly the world, as we've all been in both worlds, I recommend highly the world that says let's memorize a long line that we can see with our eyes, see the whole thing of which we can see with our eyes. Let's try to hold the whole thing in our eye and draw it, and then make it correct. And which is, look at all that unity you can get, and then come back through and articulate the shift if you need it, articulate the slight change in direction. Again, I'm looking for a spot where I could say you can plainly see that. Usually you can, say the foot down here on the discustus. So there's that part where there's two lines here. So he would look like he was trying to correct something. Remember, if you draw with line and draw fairly lightly but strong enough to see, when you come through the second time, just draw, as you get more certainty, or as you're clearly making a change, you can see clearly is better, draw just a little bit darker, and it'll take over the area. And don't remove. Gamma would say something really useful. It'd say, don't remove the old line until you're for sure the new one is better. And for the purposes of those things, drawing and stuff. Okay, Johnny, good luck with that. I don't think I have time to add to that today. I got to get on with this. Got bunches of business. I do want to warn everybody that, such as that is, that we are going to be, because of my producer's schedule, we're going to probably be limited to one video a week for about a month. Probably starting around the 1st of July. These two, this week, may be the last two in sequence. And then I'm thinking they'll be coming out on Thursdays. So I'll probably throw some blogs at you if you know where to look for those things, or whatever we call it. I think they're called blogs. So in any case, explore drawing, but explore contour. Don't think because I have this thing about saying that our way of painting is no longer the articulation of outline, but the big impression, doesn't mean that we don't draw contours. Just keep that in mind. It's so easy to think that I'm throwing out the bath with the baby and the bathwater both with my conversation. And I'm not throwing anything out, actually. I believe that everything that's happened in painting is there for a really good reason. But there are times for everything, including the drawing of outlines of objects wholesale, when you're doing imaginative paintings, for example, and having to piece things together. So don't misunderstand me about all that stuff, in case that was in your mind. But and painting by the spot, and even painting versus drawing, these are, the efficiencies of contour drawing are enormous. I mean, it's just the speed with which you can do it and get around and all that sort of stuff. You wouldn't want to do mass if you don't have to, if you can actually get the idea out there in line, because it's more efficient. And especially if it's to the degree it's an idea thing, like a contour is more than an idea. A contour is actually an articulate statement. Well, even that, if you know it's just the contour you're after, why would you want to do values in heavy ways and stuff like that? You don't have to be an impressionist when you're trying to gain information. That's the bottom line. So when you're doing contour drawing, that's one of the things you're doing. It's just trying to, like in Sargent's case here, he was trying to get information for a mural, presumably. All right, good. So I wish you all a very good week, and thank you all for sharing, subscribing, commenting, and donating. And there's something else in there again. Lynn, you'll have to remind me. And okay. In any case, see you next time.